review and so on. So that this kind of email traffic is very done in Twiki.
Related question. In classic wikis, there's the notion of this cycle of motion on a given page between document mode and thread mode and
right.
refactoring back to document. Do you have anything that supports that in a more structured fashion than just the individual personal discipline of the discipline?
Right. Okay. So the question was, in the original wiki, there's a notion of document mode and thread mode of a page content, and how to move between those two modes. Now, first of all, what it is, the document mode is where somebody starts with a page, and the next person just refactors the whole page, just inserts new phrases into the existing content. So that means that there's one monolithic document that changes over time, like the whole document changes. Thread mode is when the first person posts something, a second person adds at the bottom of the page, and so on. So both modes, there are places for both modes. There is actually the whole wiki system, or also Twiki, is totally free, so you can do either way. For the thread mode, there's some support. So there's a plugin called Comment Plugin, where you have like a small edit field visible at the bottom of the page, and you just add content and hit submit. So you don't need to go through the edit preview save cycle. So it's easier to have this threaded mode where you just add content. Yeah.
Is there like an interactive installation builder or way of something like that to customize it later on if you want to change?
A wizard.
Yeah, wizard. Is there something like that to help you? You know, you haven't shown us really, I don't think, how to actually set it up. Or
I mean, like, you're talking about the Twiki installation wizard to install Twiki itself? Okay. Yeah. That's actually on the to-do list. So the current installation is a manual process. We have extensive documentation how to install it in different ways, but it's a manual process. And so there's some folks work currently on an installer to automate that. Okay, yeah.
Just a comment on that. If someone has Debian, it's very simple. You just do apt-get install Twiki and it'll take care of everything. It has configuration. It has like a mini wizard. So if you have Debian, I know that this is quite easy. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. So I repeat the command. So there is a Debian install that automatically installs Twiki. It'll make a default install with everything on the right place. Okay, let me continue here, and let's get some more questions at the end. Or if you have questions related to the page, please ask them. Okay, so now some collaboration issues that you need to be aware of. So there's a don't touch syndrome. So pages look like a proper website, and in a way it is. And so, like if John Smith change that page, so it's visible in the signature, then it's like, well, should I change that page or not? Then also related, so there's like the shared knowledge versus ownership. So I do not want to edit someone else's page. So here, quite important is this wiki culture. So it's a cultural thing. So basically, nobody owns a page, and so and any change can be built upon. So it takes some time to get used to this type of working together. And so specifically, like the first person who creates a page is not the owner. Well, now, of course, sometimes if you have some processes, like ISO processes, documentation, you don't want that anyone just changes the page. There it makes sense either to impose access restriction or just make a command, don't edit this page. Then there's the no control syndrome. That's mainly by management, so this leads to chaos. And so it's a typical nightmare of the database administrator. The database administrator's world is control and access control. And also by upper management, it can be perceived as disruptive. And so here again, so with the soft security and this audit trail, and the peer pressure, especially with the peer pressure, it usually works very well. Then also effort, so it takes too much time to contribute. But at the end, it saves time by doing less email, by reading less emails, you will receive less emails, and by finding critical information quicker. In a good way, so if you learn some new technology on XML or whatever new technology, you can share what you learn by just creating a page. Then this Twiki syntax, so it's yet another language to learn. So what I usually answer here, so just consider Twiki like an email when you compose or when you change a page. So just do it. So in other words, only add formatting where needed. So the first point is get the content up, and the second word is the look and feel. And there are help pages, so initially you don't really need to know how to make a heading, but if you want to know that, there's a help page. Then the email habit, of course, I prefer email, but email doesn't scale, we talked about that before. But there's one implication, network infrastructure. You need to be online, okay? So if a salesperson is not connected, that person can't get at the content. There is actually a plugin that allows you to create like a static HTML version of a whole set of pages. So that way you could support these offline users, but not in a read-write mode. So now let's look at the case study at Wind River. So this initial deployment, so it was installed, like I mentioned before, maybe a half year before that initial deployment that I'm listing here. But the actual deployment started here in 2000 when Wind River started with a larger software project that had 100 engineers located in 7 different locations in Europe and the States. Wind River is a company that makes embedded systems and tools. Had a couple of companies, acquired a couple of companies, and with that engineering force they've been in various locations. So we have evaluated 2 web-based products to keep track of all these project-related stuff like schedules, milestones, meeting minutes, code reviews, objectives, and so on. So we evaluated eRoom and Twiki. The eRoom was in use by the company called ISI that Wind River acquired. It was a merger, the same size, ISI and Wind River at that time. And Twiki was used by Take 5. And so we decided for Twiki mainly because it was more flexible. You could do more things your way than eRoom, although eRoom looks much nicer out of the box and has more like already set applications built into it. So we spent some time to compile the requirements with the key stakeholders, so all the managers of this big software project, and then we spent time to build the initial structure. One requirement was, for example, to show on one page all dependencies between all these different sub-projects. So it's basically just a report that you compile all the interdependencies from these different sub-projects. Then we gave virtual trainings for each office on collaboration. There I focus more on the pros and cons of email. It's a lot about what we hear tonight, and it's not so much the actual the syntax, how to make something bold. Those trainings I gave with just using NetMeeting. I asked remote sites to gather in a conference room, like in Europe, and just made a NetMeeting session and with a presentation similar to this. And then, very important, just coaching the employees. So I monitored, plus another person also monitored the content that the engineers were putting in, then just sending hints, email hints. Hey, listen, there's an application where you can keep track of meeting minutes, or hey, you can do this way. Ah, okay. So that usually pays off. So then after this, the first group was using quite a lot, and then other parts at Wind River have been seeing how that it was something useful. Then also there was a big push in the Twiki usage when the corporate council, like a cross-department team, was using it to document all their initiatives and findings and metrics. And then we also created several skins in the Wind River intranet look. And so now we have 1,200 registered users, so almost the whole company. Actually, it's with layoffs, it's more than the company. So Wind River scaled down from 2,000 employees to 1,000 now. So a total 1,200 folks, including those who left the company.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. Where's the discipline for the registered users who are no longer with us?
Right, so that's also like a question how to manage content in Twiki. So usually content is managed by those local groups, but some part needs to be managed centrally. That's like user management. So what we do is doing folks who are leaving the company, we still leave the page, but just the user's homepage, but just delete all the content from it and made a note, left company in June or whatever, and if the person sent out a goodbye email with contact information, we put that email address also in there. And so we leave the page there because that person might have contributed some content. So if you have seen before in the presentation, typically postings are signed, so and your signature points back to your home page. So if I would remove the user's home page, those signatures would be broken links or question mark links. Okay. I'm losing my voice, sorry. But we're almost finished. So Twiki is basically a powerful platform to build web-based applications. Typically used for free-form content, but also free-form content with some structure. You can add structure where needed. So it's an easy and quick tool to share knowledge online. But careful coaching is needed. You have a small start typically, but after that you will have a viral growth. So after people get it. And so it's a platform to build web-based applications efficiently. Okay, so that's all I have. So please, questions? Yep.
Can you either show us or talk a little bit about how webs are created and how they're interrelated?
Okay, so the question is how to create a new web.
So the web is just a different namespace for the wiki.
Right. So like the original wiki only has one namespace. So if you type in meeting minutes, it's unique. It's only one page that has that name. Twiki is targeting like the corporate world, where also large organizations. So with these different webs, you have a namespace with different namespaces. So you can have a page that's called meeting minutes in the QA web, and one that's called meeting minutes in the support web, support group web.
You can't just sort of think of it like the server is a multi-hosting domain server, and each domain is its own web.
Right.
So is that broader than just Twiki? Are there other wikis doing webs now, or is that unique to Twiki?
I believe it's, but I might be wrong. So also important is to link between other webs. So if I go, let me go out of the presentation now.
You might also point out one of the ways here, we just clicked on there, there's this little sandbox, which is kind of like a practice area. Whatever you do over there doesn't cause any long-term effects.
Right, exactly. That's a good point, the sandbox. So at twiki.org we have the sandbox, but also if you install Twiki on your site, you also will have a sandbox web. And that's a good place to play around. So now let's go to the web changes link here. You see here changed by myself. So I go to this brand new page, and to answer the question about like cross-linking. So let's say, well, one cross-link already we have in here. So if you look at the page here, the signature is already here. My signature lives, my home page lives in the main web. So if I edit the page, you see here